My name is Mary Gracey. I work for Baker McKenzie as a global client manager. I'm originally from Lurgan in County Armagh. I moved up to Belfast to study law and government at the University of Ulster, Jordanstown. Well, after my masters, I secured a job with NL Goodbody in Dublin, but after a few months, the financial crisis had hit, and there was a lot of redundancies, and companies were just feeling the effects of that. So I started to think about what my contingency plan would be. So I decided that was my time to go off to Australia and travel a little. I came back after a year, and at the same time I'd reached out to my professor from my master's course just to see if there's any recruitment days or live opportunities that he was aware of. And he shared with me the USNI programme. It's a 1-year placement for young professionals in Northern Ireland to go off and get international business experience. So I applied, and then I was successful during the interview process and secured a placement with KPMG in New York. My time in New York was life-changing, really. Extreme highs, but equally challenging lows. My experience, navigating their healthcare system, apartment hunting, the small cultural differences, like knowing which side of the escalators to stand on, tiny things. Personal and professional learning curve that I was on was probably a lot higher than what I was comfortable with. Moving back home wasn't an easy decision, but for me, I kind of struggled with, the distance with family. So each time I'd visit, I'd see my parents getting a little bit older. My sisters were introducing me to new babies each visit. So it was hard to wrestle with that. Before I'd moved out to New York, I was in Australia and Dublin, and then, my studies in Belfast. So I felt like I hadn't been home in quite some time. So I thought, after 5 years in New York, it was time to go home and create some new memories with my family. Well, I've always worked and had a steady job, so coming home without one wasn't an option for me. But one day I just happened to be researching an executive on LinkedIn, and I noticed that this job had been pushed to the homepage, and it was Global Client Manager Baker McKenzie Belfast. And I had assumed jobs like mine, the one I had in New York, just didn't exist at home. So curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked through, and before I even knew it, I was actively interviewing for the role. Culturally, it was different than what I was used to, but I was lucky enough to have joined a global law firm, so I could continue, to work with North America and other countries, so it didn't feel as small. The company itself it was relatively new to Belfast, so it felt like we were all kind of figuring things out together. It's quite a social firm as well, so there's a lot of activities and things to get involved in. And just by coincidence, there was 2 expats from New York that also worked at Baker McKenzie, so that helped a lot with the transition. Originally, I had thought that, moving home would mean a step back in my career, or at the very best case, a lateral move for me, but it wasn't. Finding the role with Baker McKenzie surprised me. Moving home and seeing, things are familiar, but definitely there's a lot more to offer. The city has so much going on. I was pleasantly surprised. There is a lot more happening, even, employment-wise. The private sector is much larger than what I remember. Companies seem to be continuing to look to Belfast as a place for investment. Socially, the city itself, has a lot more than what I remember in terms of bars and food, and I would often get quite jealous on my Facebook news feed of things I thought I was missing out on with all these new restaurants opening, and it definitely has a different feel to it than when I left. I'm not the same person who left, so what I'm looking for from Belfast has changed as well. So when I go looking for, things to do in the city and, events taking place, I'm actually quite surprised at what the city has to offer. And it certainly has, an extensive food and bar scene from what I remember. So it has been a change of pace, but it has been interesting and enjoyable. Well, moving home, I also had the opportunity, to get on the property ladder. Despite earning a good salary in New York, the city takes it in rent and food and more rent. So I was able to get on the property ladder. I have the luxury of driving to work. Sitting in traffic on the M1 is nothing compared to commuting in New York City. So definitely it has been a good move for me. I don't regret leaving, but at the same time I don't regret coming home.